I'm Pat Kilbane, and welcome to Falling Damage, where we attempt to settle the long-standing debates about the rules of tabletop RPGs. And today we tackle the question, how many times could I really attack in a combat round? Well, to answer that, we're going to spend some time hanging out with these guys. But first, let's establish what period of time we're talking about when discussing the length of a combat round. In first edition AD&D, a combat round was an unbelievable 1 minute long. In later editions, it was down to 6 seconds. And if you're playing a really granular system like GURPS, a combat round is just 1 second long. So let's start with a time frame of 1 second and ask, what is the highest possible number of attacks a person could make in a single second? In 1984, Kung Fu master William Chung threw 8.3 punches in a single second, with each of those coming at full combat force. Now, people have broken that record since, but the practicality of their punches combat-wise is suspect. Wushu Kung Fu stylist Matt Emery can swing 5 times a second with these light competition broadswords. Fight instructor Bill Sampson can strike a heavy bag 6 times a second with a pair of Filipino Kali sticks. And here's Matt Emery again, now with a long staff, striking 3 blows in a second. So it appears that under ideal circumstances, if you're fast and well-trained and wielding light weapons against a static target that is not hitting back, you can strike about 3 times per second per weapon. To see what happens when we throw an armed opponent into the mix, we go to Mashu Dojo, where Sensei Matt Lynch and Jason Ives practice the art of Shin Kendo. Now, I should point out that unlike Kendo, Shin Kendo is not a sport. It is 100% pure combat swordsmanship. Take a look at this combat drill. As you can see, it's fast but not blinding. Basically, a safe training speed. This drill took about 4.5 seconds, and in that time, there were 8 attacks and 8 defensive maneuvers. That's about 1 attack and 1 defensive maneuver per man per second. Here's another drill. This drill took just over 3 seconds and included 6 attacks and 5 defenses, which again is about 1 attack and 1 defense per man per second. I know what some of you are thinking. What about the time that guys are spending circling each other and sizing each other up the way they do in a boxing match? Wouldn't that slow things down? Well, the only problem with that logic is that most combat in RPGs is between an adventuring party and multiple opponents. And Sensei Lynch contends that that is really going to press the action.
There's a lot less time for strategy when there's multiple people moving around. Even if you're not outnumbered, even if there's 4 of me and 4 of you, we have to react quicker to each other. So the chances of taking a little feint and thrust and parry and checking each other out is unlikely, because the moment you move, 3 people are reacting to your motion. And if there's 4 of us, we're not going to try and evenly spread out with the 4 of you. We're going to try and cover from 3 of you and kill 1 of you, because now there's only 3 of you and there's 4 of us. And then we're going to isolate 1 of you as best we can and kill him. Or you're going to do the same. So the timing of checking each other out and dancing around each other, probably not so much. Probably quick and brutal.
So unlike in a one-on-one fight, group combat goes 100 miles an hour right away, as both sides race to get the advantage, not unlike trying to get fire superiority in a gunfight. But what about thinking in combat? What about thinking about what you're going to do next? Are you really always going to be fighting, or are you periodically going to pause to figure things out? Well, here's what Sensei Lynch has to say about that.
There is no time to think during a fight. You can't think about what to do next. That's why you spend thousands of hours training before. It could be compared to a musician who practices scales over and over again, maybe practices whole songs over and over again, but the moment you get on stage, all that goes away. You have to instantly react to the circumstance. And in a fight, every bit the same. We practice the different moves we practice. We practice as many different combinations of moves as possible so that you're pre-programmed as best you can. Or like a typewriter, you type AF, AF 200,000 times so that later when you're typing, you don't have to think where's the F key. You just know the next thing you need to do. You do not get time to think during a fight.
So in group combat, very little time to dance around or ponder your next move. Attacks would be coming right on top of one another. Now we're going to ramp it up and watch some knife sparring at Brentwood Martial Arts. Bill Sampson is an expert at knife fighting, and he'll be assisted by his black belt student, Spencer Greenberg. Most of us imagine knife fighting the way that we see it on TV. Like this, or this. But from what Bill showed us, the real deal goes more like this. Crazy fast. Take a look at this sequence that's just over a second long. Now one more time in slow motion. Just a half second in, a light wound to the back of the hand. A light wound to the bicep. That becomes a critical wound if it hits the brachial artery. And finally, a serious wound to the radial artery, all in less than 1¼ seconds. Look at this shot. Bill checks Spencer's knife hand and drives in for a stab to the abdomen in less than half a second. Here Bill does one better. In a 1/6 of a second, he has struck the radial artery. He fakes a leg kick, Spencer reacts, and Bill delivers a fatal cut now to the carotid artery. So in answer to the question, how many times could I really attack in a combat round? On average, for each second that the round is long, you could probably attack about 1 time while still paying attention to defending yourself. And if you're highly skilled and have light weapons, you may be able to attack as many as 3 times. So there's your answer. Do us a favor and don't try any of that at home. See you next time on Falling Damage.